Hey guys and girls, welcome to this week's episode of the No BS with Birchy podcast. I'm your host, Nathan Birch, and this is a show unraveling the truth to the facade of the 21st century. We're now exiting the matrix and waking up to motherfucking reality. And today I've got Stephen Bambury from the IR team.
Yes.
Investor relations. Good. I was going to give you a high five, turn it a handshake. Thanks for coming on today.
Of course, pleasure.
For those that haven't had the pleasure of seeing Stephen beforehand, what do you do at B.Invested?
So I help our clients through the buying process of the properties.
Yeah.
Pretty much following your direction, helping them grow their portfolios and whatever their goals are.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Awesome. And you do a great job of that. Like your background, like you beforehand, you're a client of ours.
Yes.
So, yeah.
Yes. So a pretty cool, interesting story.
Yeah.
From someone who was in real estate doing everyday mum and dad houses, did that for a few years. Then I went into off the plan apartments in the city at the time, which I thought was the coolest thing ever. Now I have a bit of a different opinion.
Yeah.
And then went into land sales and did that for 6 years.
Yeah.
And at the time I was a client as well.
Yeah.
And I was selling, those sort of houses you always talk about, the no eaves, 1.5 million on 300 square meters land. That was me, literally.
Yeah.
And then outside of my work, I was buying properties for 2, 3, 400,000, those sort of price ranges, and got to 6 in a year.
Yeah.
And I was like, I'm doing something right outside of work and something wrong inside of work. So I ended up emailing you and I didn't hear back, and I was like, oh man, I don't know what's happened. And then I get a call, and funnily enough, I knew someone else who worked there, and here we are.
Here we are. It's like you couldn't live with yourself going to work every day going, oh, I can't be a part of this.
I couldn't justify it. I was like, this is great value, guys. 800 square meters, just dirt. Can't live in it, but 800,000 for that, and that was 3 properties outside of that.
Yeah, with cash flow.
Yeah.
Awesome. Cool. And today we're going to talk about something which I think is very important. And I'm going to do a disclaimer at the start. Stephen is investor relations manager at B.Invested, but he's not a financial advisor. I am not a financial advisor either. So if any of the commies want to watch us and say, oh, they're giving financial advice today, no financial advice here, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, zero. We're going to be talking about some controversial sort of topic, which a lot of people don't actually know anything about, which is a self-managed super fund. So we're going to do a bit of a deep dive from a general standpoint, not from a, everyone should go and, I should be saying here, you should go and speak to a financial advisor, get financial advice from a financial advisor, whatever. But reality is, my parents told me as a kid, don't trust a used car salesperson, a real estate agent, or a insurance salesman, right? And then I realized that to be an insurance salesperson, you must be a financial advisor, right? Right? So if financial advisors, this ain't a bag on financial advisors, but I'd always want to hear what their investing strategy is, right? I'm very open about it. Stephen's has been very open about it. We're very open about what we do. So this ain't financial advice. I think that everyone should be their own financial advisor. You should be equipped with the knowledge to be able to go, I can make an educated decision. I'm sophisticated enough to be able to, call the shots when it comes to my money, right? So I'd want to know, like, if you're going to a financial advisor, financial planner, who is this person? What is their strategy? What is their net worth position? What are they doing, right? We're very open about what we do. And it's a lot of it's public records as well. Like, here's my properties, go fucking check them out, right?
Yeah.
But you should be your own financial advisor. And I think if I ask, unless you're under 18 years old and you don't have a job, right? You've never worked a day in your life or whatever. Everybody watching this would have a super fund, right? If you've been working for 50 grand a year for the last 10 years, you would have earned $500,000, right? People always say, oh, when I win the lotto, I'll be a millionaire, whatever. Literally, like if someone's on 80 grand a year, it might take you like 12 or 13 years to earn $1 million, right? People are literally millionaires, but it's over a long period of time. You need to work out how to harness as much of that energy.
Yeah.
But if you're on 80 grand a year or whatever, and for the last 13 years you've been working, you would have like 100 grand in a super fund, right? So with 100 grand in your super fund, people come to us, they've got 100 grand, 200 grand, 300 grand, whatever. Question you should be asking is, first of all, how much money do I have in my super fund, right? You want to know that, right? Because at the end of the day, it is your money. It is your asset, right? Then if it isn't a super fund, then who is responsible for it, right? And then what is it invested into?
Mm-hmm.
And then what is my return, right? And I reckon 9 times out of 10, by the first time I say, oh, who's your super with? Fuck, I don't know. Industry super fund, right? Oh,
Very common. Very common, yeah.
How much is in there? I don't know, like 100, 200. It's a fucking big difference. There's 50% variance there, right? Okay, so you got 200 grand in your super fund. You know it's with this one. Who do you speak to there? I don't know. I've never spoken to them. Okay. What is it invested into? Oh, just a standard fund, right? You should be knowing this, right? If you can't answer one of those questions, something's fucking wrong, right? If you got 250 grand, let's pretend we're at the pub, right?
Yeah.
And then we're at the pub and someone comes up to us. I don't drink. I don't go on the pokies or anything. I'll just make it a scenario, right? We're at the pub and someone from our childhood comes to us, scooter in the hand. Oh, what's going on? Whatever, right? Oh, can I borrow 50K, right? You'd say, get the fuck out of here.
Yeah.
Right? Get out of here, right? Oh, I'll give you 50 grand. I'll give you 60 grand next year. Okay. You'd say, get out of here, right? In your super fund, you don't know who's got their grubby mitts, right? We've all seen Wolf of Wall Street, right? We've all seen Wolf of Wall Street. In your super fund, you've got a pile of commies, right? What is your money invested into, right? That's the question you should be asking yourself. Oh, it's in a property fund. Well, I'm seeing property funds blowing up right at the moment. Do you own a piece of fucking real estate? No. Do you own the shares? In shares? In what shares? Oh, in US shares. What US shares? I've seen WeWork go fucking belly up, right? Oh, it's in Afterpay. You don't know where it's invested into all these little gummy Wolf of Wall Street. Imagine the cross between a Wolf of Wall Street person doing cocaine off a prostitute and some communist, right? No financial advisor talks like us either, right? But it's true. You've got these people that think they're cool. They're a banker doing a bit of coke. They're out there, doing whatever, but they're communists and they're doing little back-ended deals. Unleveraged fund, your money's being leveraged. So if you go to a large shopping center, the large shopping center doesn't go to the big 4 banks and say, hey, I'm building a new car park. Can I get an extra $10 million or $50 million or $100 million or $1 billion? No, they raise funds. What do? They go, oh, hey, buddy, go collect some funds. Oh, I've got some funds for you at 6% interest. You're a fucking mortgage. You're someone else's mortgage and you don't even know. Right? And let's think about it, right? We're at the highest stock market ever. We're at the biggest Ponzi scheme in the world. This is a time to make sure you get your fucking finances in order. Super funds I saw back in 2019, right? People were talking to me and they were like, oh, should I get a super fund? I'm like, hey, we're in a big fucking time for a collapse. I called it the Global Financial Depression, a GFD. In 2018, 2019, it should have occurred. And it didn't occur. And everyone's like, oh, well, there was a bit of a fizzer, right? But at the same time, we saw the banks collapsing with the reverse repo market in the US. Basically, the banks were failing in about September 2019. And then suddenly, everyone got sick and then it all went away. And then all the financial markets changed. They printed trillions and trillions of dollars, right, globally. And then the stock market crashed in February 2020. And, people's super funds were like 200,000 went down to 150,000. And I was asking, oh, what is it? Oh, it's bad. It's gone from 200 down to 150K. Okay. And then 6 months later, suddenly it's like, oh, it's back to 180, 190. And then 2 years later, it's like, oh, it's back to 210 now, right? It's like, hang on a second. You've had contributions from your employee going in there. You're really behind the 8 ball. But let's assume you had 200 grand and that 200 grand was still 200 grand 2 years later. 200 grand from 2018 buys a lot of different stuff than 200 grand from 2024. So the purchasing power was robbed. And I don't think people understand this is your retirement, right? Yeah, it's in a fucking poker machine. It's up to, it's not even up to the gods. It's up to luck. It's up to, magic that's going to happen, right? It's not even up to God to decide that one, right?
Yeah.
You should be taking more of an interest in your own retirement. You should be, and there's options there. So on my little rant, that's my little rant. We're not financial advisors. Everyone should be thinking, should we get should we be looking, we should take a more vested interest in our retirement. It's not up to that Wolf of Wall Street style commie, guy doing blow with your super, right? What other options are there? And that's what we're here to discuss from a general level today.
Yeah.
So maybe if you can share maybe the context behind us. What is a self-managed super fund? What's your interpretation of it?
Yeah, so basically my interpretation of it is you taking control and also responsibility of your fund instead of having the guy with the Coke going gambling with it during the day.
Yeah.
So there is a little bit of ownership onto that. And it's funny. I feel you may know this, just judging maybe.
Yeah.
That you actually have to, from my knowledge, declare this is my investment strategy. I'm taking ownership of this. So it's funny you were saying that.
Yeah.
So when you do that, obviously you are taking on the responsibility of the returns yourself. But it just gives you more options. And in terms of what we possibly can do for our clients is we can help them through getting properties.
Yeah.
A lot of the time clients will have it invested in shares and bonds and all these different things.
Yeah.
But they can get a mortgage inside if they go with property and leverage their super. So there's just more general options for them that way.
So if someone had 250K, let's just draw some numbers. I wish I had a whiteboard here, but I don't have one today. But let's say someone had 250K in their super. Let's say someone had 300 grand in their super, right? If that 300 grand went up by 5%, and I use the word if, right? Because if you go back through your super fund for the last year, last 2 years, last 3 years, last 5 years, what's it averaging out, right? Is it averaging out at 5? Is it averaging out at 2? Is it averaging out at negative? Is it like they're coming through negative? A lot of them are coming through negative today, guys. So let's just look at it that it's 5% being. I'm being palatable and giving people. I'm giving them more credit than what they should deserve, right?
Yeah.
Well, let's assume that. So you got 300 grand, you get 5% return. That's $15,000 up on your super fund, right? You got 15 grand. But if you were to potentially, and I'm just throwing it out there, this is just a concept that we're talking, right? You can leverage it up, right? So you can set up a self-managed super fund, which would be like a company, which one would set up, and then they'd be able to transfer their fund into that. And then you can buy shares, you can buy crypto, you can buy gold and silver, you can buy, I've seen people buy sports cars, all different stuff in there, but you can't benefit from it. Like you're not allowed to go and buy a car and go and drive your family around it. It's like a specific asset, like metal. You got to get that locked away in a vault and audited and make sure that you're not putting your grubby mitts on it, right, for the government. But you have control, right? You can buy a property. You can get a loan, right? So if you were to buy, say, 300 grand, I'm just using this as an example because we've seen people do this, right? If what I've seen from people doing is if they have $1 million in their super fund, then if they have 300 grand and they go and buy $1 million worth of property, you'd have $1 million in your super fund now, right? But you'd have the debt. So the rent would be a cash flow positive property that would be covering all the expenses in the portfolio, so it's looking after itself. There's a lot of red tape around this, right? And it's very highly recommended to go and see a financial advisor that probably doesn't have a greater net worth position as you, but it's important to go and see a financial advisor. And I do always say it with genuineness to make sure you get the right professional advice around it. It's like we're not here trying to talk about financial advice. We don't give that financial advice. We're just here to discuss it. But if someone was to have $1 million worth of asset in their super fund, then, and that went up by 5%, you'd have $1 million in the super fund going from $1 million to 5% more, which would be 50 grand. So instead of having a 15 grand growth, you would have a 50 grand growth on that super. But then over the course of the next 20 years that the property is paying itself off as a principal and interest loan, that property would pay itself off. So instead of having 300 grand, you'd have $1 million, which has had the debt paid down. So if you had 300 grand, double to 600 grand, I'm saying the word if as well, goes to 600, then the 600 double to 1.2 million, you might end up with 1.2. But if you had the other option, there could be a potential of getting $1 million doubling to 2, then doubling to 4, and you could be at $4 million, right?
Yeah.
So there's also tax benefits and stuff like that. So it's tax vehicle too. Speak to your accountant, speak to your financial planner, speak to your financial advisor, get the right people around you. Make sure you got your insurances in there. Do all the right stuff. Who can have a self-managed super fund that you see?
Yeah. So one thing about the self-managed super fund that I didn't touch on before is it's really cool because as long as it's viable, you can actually join with other people. And so essentially you could have like yourself and a spouse or siblings or partner, whatever. And you guys can pull all that together, and then you're going to increase your borrowing capacity, increase the amount that you're probably going to be able to buy and stuff as well.
Yeah.
So it's really cool in that sense. I've
seen people merge with the parents. So always like personally, like I have owned maybe 5 properties with people, like where I've JV'd on stuff and that in my life, but I've always stayed shied away from it. But I don't know, right? I don't know the specifics. That's why I'd say it's important to have the right people. I'm just sharing. But I believe that you can have up to 4 people in a fund.
Yeah.
So you might be sitting there going, I've only got 50K, right? But if I got 50K and you got 50K, we've got 100 together. We just need to find 2 other people with 50K and there's 200. And it might be like, okay, well now it might be viable to do so. So you can have multiple people, but do remember that if me and Stephen are going into this, and let's just say that I just make up scenarios here, right? Let's say that there's 2 of us and we've got 2 partners and then there's 4 of us and we all throw it in together. That means that when we're 60 and 70, we're going to be retiring together. We're going to tap into that super fund, right? Like think about your friendships. How many friends are you with when you're at school and all that sort of stuff? You need to make sure that the relationship, I've seen just husband and wives that get divorced and then, you know, they've got to sell off their properties and stuff like this. Just be careful with who you do the decisions with. And
very important.
So what are some of the pros and cons, I guess, that you've seen with our clients?
Yeah. So what we've seen from our clients, some of the advantages, like we just touched on, if you do combine with your carefully selected group of people, you have 2 contributions going in.
Yeah.
So that's going to help in terms of servicing whatever's in the super fund, but also in terms of the amount that you can borrow.
Yeah.
There's a lot of tax advantages. I believe that the income tax rates are different. Capital gains tax rates are different.
Yeah.
And some of the differences compared to normal on the disadvantage side would be that you can't release equity.
Yeah.
So because of that, that's one thing where you can't tap it and reinvest and all that sort of stuff.
It's pretty boring on that. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's pretty boring on that. But once you do set it up correctly and you build up more of a cash reserve, then you can look at buying another one and so on and so on. That's what we've seen from our clients.
So just touching back on that, right? Like you can't pull out the equity. The reason why you can't pull out the equity is because the property is a non-recourse loan. So you have to set it up in a bare trust. And then once you, like the compliance, like you want to make sure whoever's setting this up for you is like not your, you know, I was going to say a name of an accountant, right? Like those ones at the end of the escalators at your local shopping centre with the, you know, they have like 4 little particle board walls around. They're there for June and July and August and they disappear again. You never see them. You want to make sure that whoever's setting it up understands super funds, has a good expertise on super funds and be able to get the compliance right. Because the reality is that your bare trust disappears once you pay out the debt. But most people haven't paid out the debt. It's relatively new. It's only like 10 years, 15 years ago that they've been doing self-managed super fund loans. And at the end of the period, then it just disappears, right? And if that doesn't work right and isn't set up right, you could be done for double stamp duty on there. So compliance is really crucial on that. But the loans are non-recourse loans. So if you were to default inside of your super fund, you're not personally liable for that. So that's one aspect. The second thing is, let's say, for instance, you haven't got the right income, or let's say you've got 10 kids and you've got 10 million worth of debt already and the bank won't touch you with a 10-foot pole, but you've got a super fund. The bank doesn't take any of your personal position into it. They're looking at the super fund being able to look after itself based on contributions from your income and all that sort of stuff. So, yeah, it's got some benefits on that front.
Yeah,
I want to run through because, like, there was a client that was sharing an idea the other week with you, right? And you're like, Stephen came to me, he's like, wow, I didn't see that before. And like, it was like strategies that have been thrown around where, like, I'm just going to use a scenario, right? When we speak with our investors, you know, you might want 15 properties, right? And then you might sell 5 of those properties, they're double. You might sell off 5 of those properties, pay out the debt, right? Another strategy that you saw the other day and we were discussing about afterwards was that the investor had the thought of, hey, I'm going to take my 300 grand for my super. I'm going to buy 15 properties under my personal name. I'm going to get the money in my super. I'm going to buy 5 properties for 200 grand a piece in the super. They double and triple. So if you've got $1 million worth of asset, 800 grand worth of debt, pays itself off. In 20 years' time, the thing doubles from $1 million to 2 million, 2 million to 4 million. The view could be that, okay, I've got $4 million worth of property. The debt is paid off. And what do I do with my $4 million? I've got 15 properties with a 150 grand debt on them. Let's say today it's 200 grand property, 150 grand debt. That would be 15 times 15. That'd be like $3 million. You could, sell off from there and pay down the debt in the personal portfolio with utilizing tax benefits and stuff like that. So there is a lot to it, but I guess we're like the gateway to, it's a possibility, it's an option. People sit there and go, fuck, I can't buy any more property. I don't have the capacity. I want to take advantage, but not realizing that they're getting screwed from their super funds or whatever. There's an alternative way, and that's So if one was to have, like, there's limits and whatnot inside of the super fund of how much you can spend up to, what sort of starting amount you should have in the super fund. We're not to get into that because it's not our position to do so. Speak to your advisor, make sure you've got the right people around you to give the guidance and whatnot. But if someone was to have 300 grand in the super, just for the fun of example, you wouldn't just go and spend $300,000 onto that, right? There's certain limits of diversification, liquidity. There's all these things that are around red tape inside the super fund, which you need to be mindful of, and you need to be, meeting those criteria. So you said at the start, like, you sort of have to take a pledge and say, hey, I'm going to take responsibility of my super, blah, blah. Like I said beforehand at the start, you sort of put your hand up and you say, I'm going to take control of this. I'm going to, look after it. I think, you need to equip yourself as an investor to be your own financial advisor, not to be reliant upon the system, and, do take an interest. Like you're sitting there with potentially millions and millions of dollars when you retire in money that other people have their grubby little mitts on. It's important to look at that. So, I'll leave it to you, just some of your thoughts of some of the things that people look at with investment, like, whether they're investing in the property or in shares, in the managed funds.
Yeah, I think most people inside their super, as we said at the start, actually don't have really an idea of where it is, who's doing it, anything like that. Another thing that people have is multiple funds from when they change jobs, and they're paying multiple fees and all that. Like, there's just so many things. In terms of the types of investments, some of our clients, we say to them like, oh, hey, have you considered this as an option? Have you spoken to anyone about this? And some of them say no, they're not even aware of it. Once they realize that there's an option for them to pursue this, then they're really keen. Because they understand the leveraging and all that, especially if they're already doing it in a personal name or a different entity. So,
And I guess, there's a regulation about, you need to, when you go set up a super fund, you speak to your accountant, speak to a financial planner, they've got to give a sign off. That's what I was thinking about beforehand. Like, they need to give you a sign off to say, yep, we're going to give you a statement of advice or whatever. But, it's really important to understand, like, if you're a sophisticated investor, like, for example, I've got a self-managed super fund. I'll talk about my journey with that. You're setting up a self-managed super fund at the moment. So that's why you're going through. And it's like, come on, Stephen, let's go and talk about self-managed super funds, because it's something you're actively doing at the moment. Like, for us, we're investors with, like, lots of properties, right? We're quite sophisticated in what we do. So, like, there becomes a point where it's like, okay, it's compliant because I'm sophisticated. Like, I've got hundreds of properties. You've got,
I'm in the same ballpark.
You're trying to chase me, right? But you're sophisticated. So, like, some of the red tape, your way around, and you go, okay, that doesn't really apply to me because I'm sophisticated also. So, I guess it's important to understand and research it, right? It's not just like if you set up a self-managed super fund today, it ain't just like, okay, today we're going to go and buy properties. It's not just like setting up a trust and buying a property. You have to do a rollover. Do you do a full rollover? Do you do a partial rollover? Do you need your insurances set up? What do your insurances look like? Am I making the right decision? Like, I'm saying a lot of people shouldn't set up a self-managed super fund because they're going to fuck themselves up, right? But the people like us that are, got that knowledge and have high levels of, knowledge about this place and knowing about, what our goals are. We've got a lot of assets behind us. We go, okay, cool, bang, bang, bang. But it might take you 3 months or 6 months to get everything set up, get your rollover happening.
Yeah. No, I agree. I think one of the things that I say to clients to kind of get them thinking about it a little bit more is, this could be 10% of the money you've earned over your working life.
Yeah. Well,
like,
it would be.
It's, and you don't know where it is. You don't know what it's doing.
Yeah.
That generally motivates people to look into it. So yeah. And on top of that, you love this one.
Yeah.
Every now and again, it becomes a different percentage that the employers have to contribute for the employees. So it's just going up.
Yeah.
So you're losing, 100% of your pays from 10 to 11% of your super now. So it could keep evolving.
They always say take 10% of your saving, take 10% of your income and go and invest it, right? Like these people, it's like they're coke snorting, Wolf of Wall Street type of people that have got your money with all these grubby little products, right? All these grubby little products, and they're not just what you think it is, right? And that's where I think it's important, like take the time, whether it's this month, whether it's the next 6 months, whether it's the next 12 months, next 5 years, right? Like take the time to go, hang on a second, there's money there. What should I do with it? Like a financial advisor, they get paid. They don't get paid for saying, hey, go and buy your own shares, go set up a ComSec account, go and buy a crypto. They're not getting paid for that, right? But if they get paid, if they get like a 1 or 1.5% rolling trail commission every year for having you in a fund. So if they sign you up to a whatever fund, they get like a 1% cut of your money every year. That's like you put 300 grand in there, that's like $3 grand a year, 3.5 grand, $4 grand a year. Every year they're getting paid for doing nothing, right? They've got 100 of those clients. They've got a nice little income coming through.
Yeah.
They're not incentivized to say, oh, how about you set it up? You do this right. Like insurances. Do you know how much an insurance, like a insurance salesperson, i.e. a financial plan, do you know how much they get paid for selling you an insurance policy?
Yeah.
100% of the premium. So if, let's say it's 10 grand, right? They get paid 100% first year. Yeah.
Wow.
So they're there to go. Most people, when they go to a financial advisor, they're like, buy some shares, put in a managed fund, set up a managed fund and put $100 a week in it, right? They're copying 1% of your 100%. It all adds up, right?
Yeah.
All these people on their books, printing money. That's reoccurring revenue. So they've got a good financial plan. They've got a good financial plan of getting you to fucking pay for their lifestyle.
Yeah.
Right? So it's, just be mindful of who's giving the advice and the actual advice you're getting, and do your own research. If the numbers don't stack up, don't do it. But if they do, then do it.
Yeah.
So, yeah. I remember when I set up my self-managed super fund, it was back in about 2009. They were very new back then. It was like these things have been out for about 15 years. And back in the day, it was wild, wild west. I had like 50 grand in my super. There was nothing in there, right? And like there's limits on how much you should have in there and stuff, but I just set it up. And I had a property I was settling in Cairns. It was like $30,000 or something. And I was like, shit, I'm 30,000 short. I can put it under my super fund, right?
Yeah.
The thing's worth like 300 grand now.
Oh no, I was going to say, geez, that's not what I pay for mine in Cairns.
30 grand. It's rent's for like $400 a week. And but I remember when I set it up, it was when I quit my job, right? And I quit my job and I'd put $5 grand. I don't even know why. I think my accountant at the time said, oh, you can save some tax, put money in your super. I put $5 grand in there. And I looked at it a month later and it was $5 grand less than what it was before I put the $5 grand. It had gone down by 10 grand, right? And I was like, fuck, like that, like for me, that was like someone's got their, this is in the GFC, right? But someone's got their grubby mitts on my money. I want better control of it. I don't know, I've got maybe like a half dozen. All my properties in there are cash that I bought. And it's dumb. It's dumb that I bought them cash. If I went through again, I wouldn't have bought them cash, would have bought them with loans and all that sort of stuff. But you can't go and refinance. You can't pull equity.
Yeah.
What are some of the common things that you see with our investors that have gone? Like, is there anything specific that stands out for you?
I think that once they discover the option and the upside of it, they want to get it done as soon as possible.
Yeah.
And then they kind of look at it like, you kind of touched on this earlier, that it's like a separate person.
Yeah.
So like the stuff that they buy in their personal name and the stuff in their super, they kind of like compartmentalize it and they're like, okay, this is done for now.
Yeah.
But in 10, 20, 30, 40 years, whatever it is, when they can access it, this is going to help me in my overall big picture.
Yeah.
So they all get excited about it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
In the .com bubble, some people don't even know what the .com bubble is, right? Probably watch it. They're not even, they're 20 years old and don't remember back in like 2001, right? Or even if you're 30 years old, you probably don't remember, like you'd be like 10 years old back in the day, but or 5 years old or whatever. But Enron and the .com bubble, like, these companies folded, right? Like the GFC. And we don't know what's going to happen in the future, right? We don't know. So like, if I had my money stuck in a super fund and the companies start collapsing, right? These are big trusted, companies, and they start collapsing. I can't go to the CEO's house, drive to his house, slap him in the face. And I don't condone violence, right? But if you lost your life savings, I remember people in the GFC that had like 900 grand ready to retire. They're 65 years old, and the next minute they've only got $300,000. And it's like, you're not going to retire like you were going to. And that just got wiped out of a click of a button, right?
Yeah.
We're at a time where inflation is running rampant. There's articles, like I looked at 2 articles last night that Macca's profits are diving, right? And I'm not here to talk about Macca's or anything like that. I'm just using it as a context, right? The cost of goods, inflation, no one expected, no one saw the genie out of the bottle that's here today, which is the inflation genie, and the extent of what, the collapses that could happen in the corporate world could, right? I'm not saying anything about Macca's, right? But, they're saying that, I read this article, it was from CNN, and it said like that the people that were the franchise owners were upset that they had to give a $5 value meal because there's only a 10% spread in the cost of food, right?
Yeah.
So the cost of food's gone up, so it's tight. And then Macca's head office has said something like, you got to give a $5 burger, so it's like a lost leader for them. And it's like, is there a point when the food bills got too high? There's articles out there that people can't afford. The market for people for going to Macca's are the poor, like the middle class and poor people. Rich people don't eat Macca's, right? They're eating better food, right? But the average person is eating in a McDonald's, right? And they're saying the average person can't afford it now. It's become too expensive, like it's a fine dining, right?
Crazy.
And this is the world we live in, right? So what could happen in these businesses as time goes on? Are they making up a portfolio? Do you have control of that? Like, if you own McDonald's shares and you say, oh, I see it as a good buy today, and I see it as not a good buy, I could sell it. You don't have that ability. What I know with all of my properties in my super fund, if the tenant don't pay rent, the tenant tries to do something, I know where they live because it's my property, right? I can go around there. My property manager can go there. We have control over it. I know that if I was fearful of, a company on the stock market, something going wrong, I could sell it. I could buy more. I'd see it as cheap. Oh, it's gone down a lot. Oh, I think I could do it. That's because I control my super fund because it's a self-managed, self being myself, being yourself, being the self, managing that super fund. And I don't think anyone has a better vested interest in your well-being than yourself. So that's why I look at it.
Yeah, I agree. I think the core thing from us is you control it, you own it, you get to choose your destiny rather than some faceless person.
Yeah. We've got enough of those controllers in the world, right? We've got enough of them. So one thing that I've seen that's like quite interesting out there is like we've got tenants, right? We've got lots of tenants we look after, and we've got tenants that can't break out of the rental cycle, right? A lot of tenants are our clients where they go and buy, 3 investment properties, 5 investment properties, they're rent investors, whatnot. But we have like tenants that are like career tenants that have been renting for 20 years. They might be 30 years old, 40 years old, whatever the case may be. And thinking, I'm never going to be able to break the cycle. I've got no sort of chance in hell of being able to buy a property, but not realizing that, hey, I've got money in my super, right? I could be a tenant and still be renting in that. You can't buy the property in your super. You can't use anything in your super to, as a personal benefit. But as a tenant, the knowledge going, okay, I've been able to buy 2 investment properties inside my super fund. Yeah, I've been renting for the last 20 years and I probably will be renting for the next 20 years. But having the security going, I know that I've been able to invest using my super fund. There's a lot of people out there that don't understand the concept of it or the ability to. There's people, you're saying beforehand, people are just starting to wake up to the concept of it. Like, you went to a party on the weekend, went to a barbecue, like spoke to your mates. Like, how many people do you think would know about it? Say there's 20 mates at the barbecue. How many would know about a super fund, do you reckon?
Maybe 5.
5. There you go. Because you're hanging around intelligent people, I'm sure there's like, you get other barbecues in other areas and they're like, I got a super fund, what's that? But yeah.
Yeah. No, I think it's a big opportunity. And a lot of our tenants would know a little bit about investing just because they're our tenants.
Yeah.
I think that's a very big opportunity for them.
Yeah. It's something, obviously, do your own research and all that sort of stuff. But if you're a tenant, we personally know tenants that are career tenants that have got properties in their super fund because that's the way of getting their foot in the door. So, they talk about, I see on the news, you've got the politicians that say, oh, we'll see if you can crack open your super fund and see if you can pull some money out. We're not even talking about pulling out money, buying a house to live. We're just saying, use that vehicle, understand it, get a level of education around finances. Like, you can go and watch Married at First Sight tonight, or you can spend the time, if you listen to this podcast, you're probably awake already, right? But it's like, do the research. If you find one little bit of, aha moment, like do some research into the concept of it and start looking into if it's right for you. Could be right for you, may not be right for you. But so any other comments or thoughts or feedback or anything you to share today?
No, I think we've covered pretty much everything. But if you are interested and you'd like to know, reach out to us and we can point you in the right direction. Obviously, I'm not setting it up, neither is Nathan.
We're not setting it up, but we can put you in contact with the right people that they are compliant and do all the regulation around it. I have seen people come to us with super funds, right? I have referred to financial planners over the years. Some of them are no longer in the business. Some of them are still in the business. Some of them are very conservative. Some of them are too busy. Some of them are very good, right? And when I say some, like 1, 2, or 3, well, threesome, but like there's a few that could be good, right? But 99.8% of financial advisors out there, I wouldn't wipe my ass with them, right? And it's important you have the right people that understand and can help you become your own financial advisor. So, if you need help with finding the right team around you, reach out to us, 1300 367 925. Email us at admin@B.Invested.com.au. Stephen and the team can put you in contact with the right people that can get the compliance set up. I did have a financial advisor once that was doing setups, and then I realized that when they were sending them, they weren't following the process correctly and were getting the bare trust. And we had to question the financial advisor because they were dumb, right? And I stopped. There's that minute I was like, don't ever fucking talk to me again, right? Because the funds were being set up and the bare trust, we had to, then say, hey, Mr. Client, use bare trust. You should really go back to your accountant. You really need to go, I went to the accountant. They said, no, you need to go back to your accountant and make sure it's compliant. And if your advice team isn't compliant, and I don't even profess to, I profess to have great ideas and strategies and random concepts in my mind, but I don't even profess to set one up, right? The compliance, I couldn't even, there's a whole other deep dive in with, people, so the experts in that field. So if you need help, call us 1300 367 925, email us at admin@binvested.com.au, share us a like, leave us a comment, and make sure you subscribe, Apple Play, Google Play, Spotify, and YouTube. We'll catch up soon, guys. Bye for now.
Like Bilal said, man, we stuck in the matrix. This my advice, don't care if you take it. The dollar back to die, soon to be hyperinflated.